always appreciated the tradition in some, especially elementary classrooms, after summer vacation or coming back from a trip. Sometimes the teachers will have this little activity where a student walks up with an object or something and then tells people about it, tells the other students about it. Show and tell. They do show and tell. Whether it's a trophy or a picture or some doodad they got from wherever they went. But every once in a while, a student will walk up there with nothing in their hands. And I remember a young lady, she said, well, I don't have anything to show, but I'd like to tell you about my trip. Her family had gone to visit, I think, Niagara Falls. And she commenced to paint this picture with her words of this amazing wonder known as Niagara Falls. And she did a wonderful job of painting this picture and then telling them about it. What was the experience like? So she pulled off the show and tell. And some of the students were amazed, even a little jealous, and you could see that she had a tinge, or even more than a tinge, of gratitude. She was proud of it. She was excited to tell them. This is supposed to instill in us a gratitude, especially for the wonders of the world and things that we have. But sometimes other people have to sort of paint a picture for us to let us realize what we have and how we should be grateful. There's a priest in the Diocese of Tyler. His name is Victor. Victor we went to seminary together. He was one of my classmates. I think he's in Sulphur Springs now. We went to seminary in Houston, and we always kind of made fun of Victor out of love. You know, he's from Bogota, Colombia. People from Bogota don't just have a first name, a middle name, a last name. He has a first name, a middle name, a last name, a last name, and a last. His name was like Victor Hugo Hernandez Martinez Gutierrez Espinosa en mi corazón. So he had this huge name. But one day we were cruising around Houston after we'd done some field work, and we took Victor to the poor part of town. And the poor part of town, if you know Houston at all, there's a section called the Fifth Ward. And the Fifth Ward is full of crime, single-parent families, bad education, violence, and all those things, and lots of public housing. It's rough. But as we were cruising through it, and we said, hey, this is the poor part of town, Victor Hugo Hernandez chimes up and says, you call this poor? He goes, come with me to Bogota, and I will show you what poverty looks like. I will show you what it looks like. And he commenced to verbally paint us a picture of a part of Bogota that they called the dump, la basura, the trash. And it was just that, where they dumped the trash of the city, and people lived there. People lived in cardboard houses, and they would go through the dump looking for food, looking for something to sell. So in a powerful way, he did a little show and tell, but he had to do it with his witness. And again, it was to engender, hopefully in us, a certain amount of gratitude, because we have so much. We have so much, because he kept saying, this is poor. These people have houses. Look, they have window units. They even have cable TV. We don't have that in Bogota. They don't have that there in the poor sections of town. But to cultivate an attitude of gratitude, we need people to show us that. We need others, to paint us a picture, to say, I will show you what this looks like. And I think we have to take onus of instilling sometimes ingratitude in our young people. I've seen it. And I've seen parents disappointed when they saved all their lives and sent their son off to college, only for him to flunk out because he partied too much. because he was ungrateful for the great gift that he had gotten. And to come home and the dad say, now you're going to get a job and pay rent. I'm going to show you what the reality of life is. I'm going to show you what it means to be an adult. I'm going to instill in you a sense of gratitude so that you can instill that into your own children. But first I have to show you. First I have to show you. You know, sometimes I do make examples of young people, but I think, like I said, I think it's sometimes our fault. If you've ever seen a young person who has everything and the catastrophe when you take away their phone, when you say no video games or no computer, and all of a sudden they're throwing a tantrum right here on the floor. Where does that come from? It comes from, shall I say, the word has been used a lot, a place of privilege. We don't realize what we have been given, that we have been given so much, that we are sitting on a gold mine called freedom. We are sitting on a vineyard that produces so much fruit called the church and the sacraments. But someone has to play show and tell sometimes and let us know that. I've been sharing this weekend how this slapped me in the face when I was in the seminary with Victor. We took a mission trip to Guatemala. And those kind of mission trips can change your life. But there was a diocesan seminary there in Guatemala City, so we went to visited all the men there who were studying for the priesthood. There was about 80 of them. But as we looked at them, we realized how privileged we were. They fed us, and then they asked us, so tell us about the seminaries in the United States. What's different about here and there? Well, the first thing we told them was that, well, the boys, the seminarians cooked. And I said, well, we have cooks. And then they noticed that we all had cell phones. And then they found out that all of us had cars. And the coup de grace was, for them to go to seminary in Guatemala, their parents and family have to foot the bill. And when we told them, no, the diocese pays for us to go and we get a monthly stipend. And then there's this one tiny little Guatemalan goes, can I go to the United States? Slapped in the face. But they had to show us just how much we had. We had this grand display of show and tell about maybe how a bit ingrateful we were. In the Old Testament and the New Testament, God keeps bringing up this image of a vineyard. What is a vineyard? A vineyard that is rich and fertile and has been hewn and cultivated and then given to the people of Israel. And we know that when it was given to them, not only did he give it to them, he set them free. He fed them. He gave them a way of life. He adopted them. They were called the chosen people. He fed them in the desert. And then he appointed men, the high priest, the priest, and the Levites, to care for them. That was the vineyard. We sang it over and over. The vineyard of the Lord is a house of Israel. Cultivated. I've given it to you. Handed it to you on a silver platter. And as we read all through the Old Testament, oftentimes, more often than not, they squandered it. They let it go dry. They let it go fallow. They didn't realize what they had been given. Jesus again uses this in Matthew. Uses the parable that there was a property owner and he had a rich vineyard that he had cultivated, planted with choice wines, it says. Put a wine press in and built a tower. And then gave it to tenants. And who are these tenants? Well, that was the scribes, the Pharisees, the chief priests, the Levites, to cultivate it. But they were ungrateful. They saw it as their own. They blew it. And they did not grow in gratitude. And I think us as adults must start to model gratitude. We must model it for our young people and for the rest of the world. And for the rest of us Catholics we have to be able to model that we have been given so much. We have been given the truth of the faith, the fullness of the Christian faith, the sacraments, a history, traditions that Western culture has adopted. But we often don't get credit for it, and we don't stand up for ourselves. We have to start proclaiming what we have been given, because no one else will. They'll make us ashamed of our history. Every time you run into someone who brings up the Crusades or Galileo or the Inquisition, I usually respond with, "Is that all you got? That's the best you can do?" You know, I had a music teacher, and she did not believe in God. We had some interesting conversations, but every once in a while, she would say something like, "Well, me and my friends are going out for Halloween." I said, "You realize Halloween's a Catholic thing?" "You're welcome." Or when she was taking a break for Christmas, "Do you know what Christmas is?" "You're welcome." Even the university system. Remember, I would argue that modern universities, which are absolutely hostile to Christianity, even those ones founded as Christian institutions, every Ivory school, whatever those smart schools are called, they were founded to teach Protestant ministers how to preach and to study the Bible. But the first universities were monasteries. They were Catholic Benedictines. Why? Because that's where the books were. That's where the teachers were. That's where knowledge was held. And they sat there with their little pens and copied every book. And to say to that agnostic university sociology professor with blue hair, "You're welcome, you're welcome." But I would even argue that science was born, modern science was born of Christianity. And we have to know that. We have to be able to paint that picture and play, show, and tell to the rest of the world. Because no one else will. No one else will. We are sitting on a great vineyard, a great lush history. And the question is, do we till it? Do we cultivate it? Do we play show and tell? There was a great famous convert to the Catholic faith. If you know who John Bergsma is, he works for the St. Paul Society. He talked about how as a Protestant, he challenged a Catholic because it was on the feast day of the Queen of Mary, the Queen of Heaven. And he said, "Show me in the Bible where it says Mary's the Queen of Heaven." And an educated Catholic said the same thing that Victor did. "I will show you where it says that." Cracked open the Bible, went right to Revelation chapter 12, with a woman clothed with the sun, with a crown of 12 stars. What kind of women wear crowns or queens in the heavenly realm, about to give birth to our Lord? Let me show you. And that cracked his world. That was his first step in the right direction. When did that happen? Is when someone says, "Show me and tell me." And that man was able to do it. So when we are asked to give a testimony for our faith, that we are fed word and sacrament here at the altar, and why we are Catholic, why we are Christian, hopefully we'll have something to show and then something to tell.